The effects of the American Revolution on Canada.
America tried to capture Quebec, but failed. The English-speaking Americans and the French-speaking Canadians basically guaranteed that they could not be together. Nova Scotia was very similar to New England at the time, aka 13 colonies. In fact, three-quarters of Nova Scotians were actually New Englanders, yet they still would not join America. At the time, Halifax, aka Nova Scotia's capital, was a very, very important harbor base. Halifax was run by very wealthy merchants, and the merchants had lots to lose if they joined in the revolution, and lots to gain if they did not. Some Nova Scotians did, however, want to join the revolution. The people of Machias invited George Washington to invade Nova Scotia. He refused. However, a small group of Nova Scotians fought battles with Jonathan Eddy alongside the British, but they were defeated very easily. And privateers were busy raiding British ships and villages along Nova Scotia's coast during the war. This caused Nova Scotia's economy to plummet, and it basically guaranteed the colony's loyalty to Britain. Around 1 in 5 Americans did support British rule. These people were known as loyalists, and they were abused by patriots. When the revolution ended and the Treaty of Paris was signed, between 80,000 and 100,000 had to leave their homes in the United States. Most loyalists went to Canada. Around 7,500 loyalists settled in what would become Ontario, 2,000 settled in Quebec, and almost 30,000 settled in Cape Breton, the island of St. John, and the St. John River Valley. At the time of the American Revolution, there were about 50,000 African Americans in the 13 colonies that worked on the plantations of the South. The Loyalists offered the African Americans freedom because they thought it would make the 13 colonies' economy go down. Most of the slaves became either cooks, soldiers, or nurses. Some got sold back into slavery. War ended. Approximately 3,000 black loyalists went to Nova Scotia, where many of their descendants still live today. When the American Revolution began, the First Nations had the biggest side between the Americans and the British. It would be very hard for them to stay out of conflict because the Americans wanted some of their land. The Mohawk Nation was part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. They had traditional territory in what was now the colony of New York. They were very close to the British and a man named Sir William Johnson. However, when it came down to it, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy decided to keep a neutral position. Mohawk leader Joseph Brant disagreed. Joseph Brant was the brother of Molly Brant. Joseph Brant was also Sir William Johnson's companion and friend. He visited England as an ambassador and secured a promise of lands in Quebec if they fought with them in the war. The British lost the war. The 1783 Treaty of Paris recognized American independence and divided British North America. However, these negotiations ignored the First Nations, so Joseph Brant felt betrayed and wrote a letter to the British. With this letter, the British government gave the Haudenosaunee land along the Grand River in southern Ontario. After 1783, the British made serious efforts to build up their English-speaking colonies. They wanted populations loyal to the British Crown. Loyalists, including First Nation and African Americans, had been the first wave of people welcomed to the North. People living on the East Coast still had close economic ties with Britain and New England. The Constitutional Act, passed in 1791, divided Quebec into 2 new colonies, Lower Canada and Upper Canada. Canada kept French culture, the Catholic religion, and French civil law. Upper Canada was English-speaking and Protestant. The Constitutional Act gave both parties their own government. Members of the executive and legislative councils were prominent members of the community. They helped the governor make laws for the colony.